There's a lot of misconception about how much money you make as a DJ, artist, and a musician in the early stages. For years, people have been like, I thought you were doing that full time. I'm like, I've literally just broken even. Streaming doesn't pay anything until you're of a certain level. You're not getting proper income from your gigs. If I hadn't had that background that I have in marketing and in the corporate world, I might be more emotional or frustrated a lot of the time in certain places in my artist career, because you're like, I've made this amazing music. There are very few female-founded labels, parties, etc. I just thought that there'd be this sort of magic stuff that would make people listen to your songs. Like, I was like, surely there's programs and algorithms and stuff, but no, that stuff can kick in.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Oysters, the London Business Day podcast, where we get you together with business tips that actually work and let you know where it's tapping your Oyster card around the city. My name is Frances Adair Matthews, certified Notion consultant and founder of the Notion Bar, where I get my clients together with personalized productivity systems built in Notion. For my system-loving girlies, and never fear, every month I host the Big Notion Energy Academy, where we go through Notion's latest releases and your burning questions. Details in the show notes. Well, what a week! For anyone who's been in London a while, they'll know that this time of year, it's like, it's event season, basically. It's like corporate business networky event season. So there is so much going on, so many conferences in town and just cool things to get into. Like this past week, I went to the opening of, which is the African Art for the Frieze Festival, the big art festival in London. First time going. It was so much fun and the art is so good. Before that, I went to the Nigerian Modernism exhibition at the Tate Gallery, which is also exceptional. So just, it's been a very artsy and creative. And then on top of that, I gave a Notion workshop for Mums Who Build, a really cool organization. They meet up every Friday morning and they have a new topic. They've got two sites, one in Walthamstow and one in Notting Hill. I went to the one in Notting Hill after going to one of their events a few weeks ago, and I fell in love with everyone. And I was like, I need to come back and teach everyone about Notion. They were like, please come. And yeah, that was really a wholesome event, and I'm glad I did it, and to hopefully do more things with them in the future. But for now, super excited for today's episode, so let's jump straight into it.
Hey London Business Babe. This community is built for us and by us to ungatekeep your next move and life in the city. If you never want to miss out, subscribe to the Substack, where episodes will land straight in your inbox. Plus, every other Monday, you'll get a chance to feature on the show by shouting yourself out in the Manifest Monday email. You never know who's listening. Details in the show notes. Now, grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and let's get into today's interview.
Excited for today's episode. I feel like this has been a long time coming in. Today's guest is Lex Hearth, a London DJ, broadcaster, and founder of Dance Music Digest. She hosts a monthly show on Voices Radio, writes 2 newsletters on dance music and culture, and has led marketing for brands like Nike, Off-White, and Lego, and is now the founder of her very own startup brand lab. She also curates and throws events in London. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We were just catching up before this. You're doing all. You are like London transient, if anything, at the moment.
Yeah, I know, it's true. I'm like on the move. I think the thing is, I like feeling momentum and like feeling like things are happening, but then recently I felt like some things need to be static, but you know what I mean? So then everything else can kind of spin around on top of it, but we'll get there.
I feel like as well, it's just the season of change for you. You said you just left your 9 to 5.
Yeah, I always approached my career was like, I had a sort of safe corporate job and that would pay my rent and give me foundational income. Everything else that I was working on in music and writing could sit outside of that, and I was like, okay, this is great because at least I don't have to worry about money. I don't have loads of time, but like that's one thing that I don't have to worry about. I've gone to that point where I'm like, okay, it's time to switch over. I think there's a lot of misconception around, and it's something we can talk about depending on how much you want to talk about how much money you make as a DJ, artist, and a musician in the early stages. For years, people have been like, I thought you were doing that full time. I'm like, I've literally just broken even. It costs to get going as a DJ and a producer, and there's software you have to buy. If you want to rent a studio, you have to rent a studio, etc. Streaming doesn't pay anything until you're of a certain level. You're not getting proper income from your gig, so that takes time to build. I always wanted to do that the right way, so I was like, cool, I have a job separately. Now is like, okay, actually I'm further on in terms of the amount of time that I've had a job in marketing where I can actually build my own company. In that, it gives me a better time balance. My income from DJing has gone up, so now my income is like a hybrid of all these different things, so it makes much more sense to detach from a company or my own company rather than someone else's.
Yeah,
that's changed.
And yeah, people don't realize it's expensive. Like, I don't know, did you see Jotty? She's doing a little series at the moment because she's doing a show at Ali Pali, and she was like, yeah, so this whole thing is costing me 100 grand. Like, what?
I mean,
was like, that's insane. She was like, I'm not making any.
I know Jotty a few years ago. I was involved in an organisation called She Said So for women in the music industry, founded by Andrea Magdalena. I was talking to someone there about what I was doing, and I was saying, like, you know, I know that there's this path for me over here in like kind of corporate world, but like I know that's not who I am. It was just something I did to live in London and survive. She was talking about Jotty at that time. It was like just before Jotty had broken, saying like, she's exactly the same. This is what I want to do. She's really gone for it and had an amazing career, but she's like shares the reality of every stage. You're like, okay, cool, now I'm here, but now I'm still not really making any money. Or the numbers are bigger, but the pressure is bigger. So if you want to deliver something, you have to invest back into it. So it's definitely harder than people think in that sense.
Yeah. We can talk all day about that.
We can talk about it all day. And your boyfriend's a DJ as well, right?
So I see the inner workings. You're not really making, unless you're working with brands for there and stuff, you're not really making any money. Clubs and stuff don't really pay well.
Yeah, the gigs that look good don't pay very well, but the gigs that are a bit more less shiny. But I don't do so many of the less shiny ones because I knew where I wanted to go, was much more interested in the artist side of things. It's always a balance, a toss-up.
But that must be interesting because you have the marketing business background, like working for these big brands. How do the skills you've learned through that side of things translate into building a career in music as a DJ?
It's a great question. I think I have this balance of being very creatively romantic and idealistic and aware of the way the world works and discovery works, etc. I think if I hadn't had that background that I have in marketing and in the corporate world, I might be more emotional or frustrated a lot of the time in certain places in my artist career, because you're like, I made this amazing music, there's a clear why isn't anyone listening, but actually so much more that you have to do to get people to listen to it. Like, there's so many more things that you have to consider and do, and you have to put strategic hat on. I don't think it's easy because we're much more emotional about ourselves and our work and how that's received. I think having that background helps me know the difference between how I would like things to be the way they are and how I can apply that to my own projects and career. It doesn't make it easier, but it does make you more resilient and practical.
Not seeing at things with rose tinted glasses. You're just like, no, this is what it is.
Yeah, and I think also it's like I know that like it's a real privilege to work in music, have my musical output, and no one's going to take that away from me. It's a different thing if you want to actually build a career in it. And so if you do want to build a career in it, you kind of need to, I think, approach it with a slightly more businessy mindset. And I do think that is also true of today's climate in a way that it wasn't always. I used to read a lot about Madonna and Moby and these artists that I really looked up to. They did, I think 30 years ago, you could be more of just an artist and things might just kind of cut through for you if you were around the right people. But nowadays, the landscape is so dense, and living in cities like London costs a lot more. You can't really be in, like, I was listening to a podcast, they were talking about New York, but I think it's true of London as well, that like there used to be like this kind of hot pot of creatives and artists and finance people, and everyone was in it together. But now the income difference is so big that it changes the whole structure of the cities. Slightly different topic, but it means that your survival and your art aren't necessarily linked in the same way that they might have previously been.
Yeah, I think there are a lot more people in the situation that you're in, where it's like you have a 9 to 5 or the thing that's like actually bringing you money, and then like your creative practice is like you're slowly building that up until a stage where
Yeah.
that can be your...
Yeah. At the same time, it was like a different thought that I had, but I think the fact that I did the corporate bit first, I left uni, knew I wanted to be a presenter and be in radio. I just learned to produce music because I was like, I don't know how to move forward.
Fair enough.
So I was like, I'll just learn another skill. I had no idea how to get into it. Whereas advertising was presented to me as, you're a graduate of this university, here you are, like, go into advertising. I grew up in Devon, which is where I am now, in the countryside. There was nothing, like, I was like, well, I know I need to be in London, so that's the way I can kind of get to London. And I think for a lot of people, it kind of goes the other way around, where it's like you know that you want to be a musician or a presenter and you just come straight and do that. And while a lot of the time I envy those people, and sometimes I think a lot about, oh God, I wish I'd just fought harder in the earlier stages. At the same time, I think the fact that I've done this other thing means that, like, I know what that looks like too. So now I can kind of have the confidence to go all in on what I really want a little bit more, because I know what the other option is. Whatever I wanted, if it then took a long time to move, then maybe I would have given up, because I would have been like, okay, I tried this, there was a time limit on it. Whereas now I feel very much that there's no time limit on me achieving what I want, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. You know what the other side looks like, and it's like, I don't really want to go there.
Yeah.
Like, I've done it.
Exactly. I'm like, tick that box, fine, all good.
Fair enough. What is, like you said, the landscape has changed so much. What are some of the things that you have to deal with in the music, being a DJ, that people may or may not realize? We talked briefly about things being really expensive to throw a show or event. Like, what are some of the annoying admin things?
Like I have made a decision to build my own record label. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the main ones is that in electronic music, which is the genre space I sit in, it's dominated by labels almost as much as artists. Labels have a bigger following than the artists. They tend to sustain longer. The DJs that have really long careers, like Jamie Jones, Blondish, Marco Carollo, all have their own labels and their own parties. There are very, 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 very few female-founded labels, parties, etc. They do exist, but they haven't been given the same kind of support, and they don't exist in the same volume. And it's quite easy to burn out, because if you're the only woman, it's becoming easier because there's so much energy put into it, and there are a lot more communities now, and I'm part of a lot of communities in music where you get support and you help each other. But before WhatsApp, your community would have just been your friends, which typically tends to be people that look like you. So I think at that time was a lot harder to, you know, because like even I struggle, I'm always around guys when I'm DJ, which is fine, but sometimes you just want the girls. There's a ton of admin involved. I was saying to my sister last Friday, because I'm actually just about to hire someone, like 2 hours just converting my music to make the YouTube asset and the Instagram images of the songs to upload onto the channel. Like, I'm also doing that for all the music that I'm putting out. I work with a distributor who gets the music onto a platform, but your music goes onto a platform and then no one listens unless you do all of this extra promotional work outside, which is like playlist pitching. If you're with a major label, they have like little armies of people that are doing all of those things for you. But if you're not with a major label, you have to do it all yourself. Radio play comes from me uploading the song to certain radio servers, messaging all of the DJs and saying, hi, I've got this new song out, people you listen to it. Like, press comes from me being like, hi. I always think when stuff comes back, people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I sent like 1,500 emails to get that one thing.
The back end is mad.
Huge.
We're just like, oh, I love this song.
Yeah.
You're just like,
and that's like all the stuff I said about the boring stuff and the romantic stuff. That's after you've made the song. The coolest thing for me was that I could learn how to produce music that I loved and I wanted to play, produce independently. Again, a lot of people team up, which makes a lot of sense. If someone's been doing something for 10 years, they're likely going to be more advanced than you. You might have been producing for a couple of years. You could get some ideas together and then work with another producer to finish it off, which I was encouraged to do when I first started producing. But again, I felt like there's an end point to that where I'm always having to rely on another person. They're always going to influence the sound. So how am I going to have a sound that's like distinctive and 100% within my control if someone else is finishing and shaping the end product? I don't want to be that person. I want to be the producer who is the only person in the room, the person who actually had the skills. But yeah, that takes years and hours. So before the admin, there's that whole making the song thing. Learn to do it again and again and again. And again, like even I'll use a mainstream example because it's sometimes more relatable, but I think, okay, I can't remember her name. And also I know she's like, people don't really talk about her so much at the moment. Is that big singer? Oh, okay. I've forgotten her name. But she had a #1 album and she said they made like 280 songs for the album. It's like,
What?
you make so much more music than what actually ends up being released and out into the world. The volume is a lot bigger than it would be perceived.
The other day I was watching YouTube and it started playing another video. I was like, this sounds like this genre, but there's something not quite right. It doesn't feel, there's no like, something's off. And I looked at the description and I was like, oh, it's AI music.
Oh, it's AI, computer made it.
It was like a 60s Motown band made through AI, and I was like, it's completely soulless. So
I was like, that's soul music.
I think
There's
we're
no
okay.
soul.
I think we're okay with that.
Yeah,
but like,
I tend to agree.
So massive back end of the music industry. Where do you learn all of that? Are you just winging it on the way? How do you even learn all of that stuff?
Bit by bit, I think. Like through friends. When I first started my label, I had a friend who runs a community. People pay £7 a month and he organises Zoom calls where we share our music and talk to each other, and we share tips and advice on production. A really great guy called Camille, who's based in Valencia, but he's actually Dutch. I met him like 2 years ago. When I said I was going to set up a label, he sent me lots of voice notes and was like, these are what you do. This is the distributor that I use. Since then, I've actually changed distributor. Distributor is the company that gets your music onto all of the platforms. They offer additional services, marketing, but you have to pay for them depending on your budgets. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't really have budgets, so I kind of do it myself. Yeah. And then there's a lot of decision making. Some people don't individually upload their songs to their YouTube channels. The music will exist on YouTube, but it won't have its own like, video.
Yeah.
But when people discover you, they miss the opportunity to also discover your music. Because I think YouTube's a big important channel for DJs. So like extra stuff like that I decide to do, which some people don't. I think that comes down to like, what's your vision and how complete is your vision, you know? And because there isn't another person, like when I first released music, I released with a label. So the first time I did do it, I did have experience of working with someone else. But it was a massive learning curve because music came out and nothing really happened except for a little bit of support from BBC Introducing, which is the best platform in the world for new artists. So that's not a small thing. But that happens through artists upload their music to the BBC Introducing platform and then it kind of goes from there. I just thought that there'd be this sort of magic stuff that would make people listen to your songs. Like I was like, surely there's programs and algorithms and stuff. But no, that stuff can kick in, but only after you've driven a lot of traffic to it yourself. Yeah. So I mean, it's like there is guides, you can take courses. A lot of people study this, go to uni and study music business or something, but I studied English and drama. I mean, I was not studying that.
I mean, but very translatable skills to what you do, right? Good communicator, you have an amazing newsletter that's part of your marketing, and you got to like have stage presence, right?
Also now people ask me, even with a distributor, I went for a coffee with a friend who runs a platform called Not Bad for a Girl, which is a label. They're getting a lot of movement at the moment, supporting DJs that are female or non-cis male. She used to work for a big label, defected. So she was working with Labelworks and her distributor. She was like, I can make that introduction. Now, whenever people ask me, I say, this is what I've learned. People do share knowledge. And there's quite a DIY community in music. Everyone's like, how does this work? I made a song. What happens now? So there is quite a supportive community in general. But yeah, a lot of learning.
But I feel like the two sides of you play off each other because you started in corporate in marketing, so you know how the game works, and then you're creating, and that side of things is almost always trying to recreate the magic and the authentic community that happens in creative spaces, like music. Do you feel there are lessons that you're learning from building music communities that enable you to be a really good marketer?
Well, yeah, I think the point around authenticity is a big one. A lot of people who work in marketing and brands think they can offer their platform and that is satisfying for an artist, but that's not the way it works. You need a mutually supportive relationship between a brand and a creative. Like having authentic messages, the past couple of years have been a massive learning curve for me in terms of design, visual, like being a part of a world building, which is what you do as an artist. And I think what successful brands do is they stand for something more than their product. They represent something, they are consistent and holistic with that, from the people that they, to the people that front the brand, to the messages that come across. There's a depth to it. I think that the music side of things in the world that I've come from there. But it's also the fact that because of what I've had to do for music, fed into SBL, Startup Brand Lab. Before that, I had a magazine called Cleopatra's, which looked at women and leadership. I had to learn Photoshop. Now I just use Canva because it's way easier. I had to learn how to video edit, what typography was, which colors meant what, how to find fonts that worked with what you were trying to communicate. All of these skills, I was in brand strategy and kind of account management or brand management. None of those skills are something that you would learn in that job role. It's given me a holistic 360 ability so that when I work with startups, I can do everything, which startups need because they don't have the same resources. Like Nike, you are just a cog in a wheel in the nicest way. You have a very specific job to do and you don't need to stretch outside of that. Sometimes you can. And as you said, being a good communicator is critical and building relationships is really important. But I'd never need to design something because a designer for that, and I wouldn't need to do the copy because a copywriter for that. But in music and in like my Substack events, etc., there's no designer, there's no copywriter, there's no digital, there's no media person, there's no one buying the digital ads. Like I'm buying the digital ads and customizing the audience. So yeah, it definitely makes you much more of a holistic machine than I would have been in my exclusively corporate career.
Yeah, and tell us more about Startup Brand Labs. Like, what's the dream? What's the vision? What are you excited about?
What I really like is the fact that I find startups and founders really inspiring, kind of in a similar way to music. I love people who have an idea and they're passionate and they want to bring it into the world. And I find working with founders very inspiring because they really, really care about what they're building. And sometimes they don't have the resources or skills to do their marketing, but maybe their product is amazing. And the nice thing about it as well is I've been able to work with like completely different types of products and microalgae that will enable vegan omega-3 to be created at a much bigger scale. Like that is miles away from like Lego, Calvin Klein, like the products that I've worked on. And it's so cool for me because that person created something that has genuine, real value in the world that contributes very positively to sustainability. And there's such an authentic, great story that I can help them tell. Because I used to find this really annoying even when I worked with people that, like, sometimes I'd have this where, for example, I would like work with Lego or something and we'd say that we needed to do a specific social campaign over 2 months and we'd want to find some kind of content creator to work with, for example. And then you'd say, this is what the brief is. And they'd come back and say, okay, in order to do this, I'm going to need 150K and 4 designers and 3 copy. And I'd be like, no, you don't. You just don't. And it's just like, no. And then obviously the answer would always be no. You never end up working with those people. But I like to be able to work with founders and say, okay, if there are extra resources, then of course, sometimes I need those. If certain types of briefs, I would always want to work with a designer or someone who was proper expert in that. And because of the work that I've done, I know the best designers and all of the best people for the job. But I like the fact that I can bring their business on quite far. Yeah. It's just very satisfying. And it's nice because it sits side by side with what I'm doing and developing, but I can put a different hat on and complete, like, there's a completion stage for me in that. Whereas with music and with my label, there's no completion stage. I don't know if you find this, but like, I just finish one thing and then the next thing needs to be done.
The next thing on the to-do list.
Yeah, there's never, oh, I finished that job. It's like, okay, cool. So now I've cleared that off. So now I need to just start the next one. Like as soon as one record is out, then you have to promote it. Then you have to make sure the next one's ready to go on platforms. Like it's constantly rolling. Whereas the work that I do as Startup Brand Lab is more closed. It's more brief based. It's nice to get into the headspace of someone else's project and someone else's challenge. And it's like learning something different. It balances me out for sure in a really nice way that's beyond just income, you know?
I think that's nice to have that variation in your work and how you spend your time. That's why I started this podcast. Yeah. Because I was doing before I was a full-time Notion consultant. I was a podcast assistant on another podcast called Techish. So I was balancing my time in that way like that. But Notion consulting ramped up to the point where I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But then as time went on, I was like, I actually miss doing something else. I can't just think about Notion all the time, right? Make me insane. Like, this can't be it. So I started this and I feel a lot more balanced and keeps things interesting.
I feel actually in a really good place at the moment that the balance is good. I think the balance is hard to strike. I think it's just the right time for me to be doing this. You always have your own timeline of when you want things to happen, but sometimes things take longer than you want. Generally, in my experience, things take longer than I want. I'm not someone who's really like, oh my gosh, so overwhelmed. You work really hard and then things happen. The way things fall into place is nice. And then a little bit of space opens up. You can think about what you want to bring into it. But yeah.
What's next for you? Like, what's something you're excited to like launch or you're like actively working on to level up in either the music side or the startup brand labs side?
So the biggest thing, I think, startup brand lab is just going to be like an ongoing thing, particularly next year. There's some interesting stuff that I'm working on at the moment, but it's just nice because of the variety. On the music side, it's like, so DMD, which is my platform, which stands for two things. It stands for Dance Music Digest, which is the newsletter which kind of started it off, and then it stands for Deep Minimal Dance, which is the genre space that it kind of exists in. Next year is like a massive like growth focus year, which is partly why I'm hiring now, really on like audience and visibility and also consistency for the label output, because I started the label at the beginning, I first released on it because I released my own project on it in February, but then I started properly releasing other people's music this summer.
Nice.
And I've had a monthly release. So next year it's like in kind of growing that side of things, but making my vision for it is very much for it to be like, you know, like a Soulection or Abracadabra, like these platforms that they represent something bigger than just like the songs. There's kind of a whole mood and a whole energy around it, and the whole idea of like Dance Music Digest is that it's like news and storytelling on dance music. So growing that, and like, because it's one, you know, when you have a vision for something but you only have X resources, so there's like this journey that you kind of have to go on to like juggle those resources to get your end product looking more similar to how it is in your mind. And hopefully that's what next year is gonna be about. The radio side of things, like, I love, and so trying to like get into a more consistency with that, because I have a show on Voices Radio which is in King's Cross, but community radio is like an amazing thing and I love it so much. But you really, again, like, you have to be the driver of growth behind your show if you want it to grow. It can just be something that's nice for you to do and meet people. But for me, it's like part of a bigger thing that I'm working on with DMD. And so, yeah, just trying to make sure that that platform serves people in the way that I want it to, and like has a role for people in their lives in the way that I want it to. That's next year's big challenge.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And what is this hire that you're hiring for? How are they going to help drive the vision?
They'll be like, so I'm hiring a marketing and operations assistant. So they'll be like it's a bit of an experiment because it's my first hire, but I just, kind of like I said to you, I was like, I'm spending hours doing stuff that doesn't need to be done by me.
Yeah.
And it felt like, and also one of my bad habits is I just get overexcited and I do too many things. Like, and I tend to think that like, I can start a record label and I can also run this like a thing, and I'm doing 2 newsletters like a week and a podcast which I edit myself, and like,
oh no, girl,
you know, it just becomes like to the point where all my time is spent actually creating those things which I obviously care about very much, but then I'm like, but wait, how am I also going to create music? That takes hours and that needs room around it as well. You need like time where you make stuff that you're never going to use. You need like creative projects are like, that's what I always think, versus a lot of the work that I did in corporate, they need space around them.
Hope you're enjoying the show. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Even better, if you're loving the show, take 2 seconds to rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other people find us. And if you want to be a guest, details in the show notes on how to sign up. Now, let's jump back in.
Thank you so much for sharing that business journey. I think that was really good, holistic, like transparent view on it as musician.
Yeah. I always think that sometimes you get lucky and something might fall into place for you. But I think it's good to know that if not, you can make it happen for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. And so now we're going to transition into stuff that brings you joy. First question should be a good one for you. Do you have a walk-up song or a song that makes you hype? I am building a playlist on Spotify at the moment.
Yeah, my favourite song changes every week. But I was thinking about this earlier. I remember being in a car listening to Radio 1 Hackney and Rihanna came on. She opened her set with Talk That Talk. I didn't really love that song that much. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, this song
Bending.
And then when I watched it back, I think it was like peak Rihanna where she's just got a big t-shirt on. There's some Cleopatra references. Ever since then, I think of that song as like, it's like very boss energy moment. Yeah, but I don't listen to it that much anymore. But when I think of that kind of energy, I think of that song.
I completely forgot about that song. But yeah, that is the intro to that.
The intro is really good.
Do you have any personal policies that keep you sane? I always say I no calls before 10. I'm just not a human.
Yeah, that's a good one. I am a obsessive list maker, and I think everything can be solved with a to-do list. Literally anything that you need to achieve, anything that you want done is just a list. Then you just tick it off task by task. There's a Henry Ford phrase, nothing is that hard if you break it down into small pieces.
Yeah.
So I always think of that as the first actionable step. I don't really work late into the evening. I'm big on sleep. Sleep is something that I will not sacrifice. Ironically, being a DJ, obviously, a lot of the time I sacrifice sleep. If I'm tired, it's not getting done, basically.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm really tired, I'm sleeping.
I respect that. And now style. How would you describe your style uniform, especially when you're on stage? Do you have any key pieces or brands that you...
Yeah. I think if I had all the money, I would be wearing Prada and Miu Miu all the time, but not yet. I do wear a lot of black, like black leather jacket, a good wide leg, straight leg jean, and just good fabrics and cuts. I think a good style approach is I quite like being dressed kind of androgynous, but being very feminine in myself. Cool. I would say that.
And how about beauty? Do you have any hero beauty products that you consistently rely on?
Yes, Korean sheet masks are like the best thing ever. I probably shouldn't say specific brands in case one day we work together. But a lot of the British brands that you get in Boots are terrible, really bad, don't do anything, and a complete waste of money. I go for things that are pure and have less artificial things. So, for example, sheet masks are 500,000 times better than a lot of the ones you get just like pharmacies in the UK. So that is one thing. And yeah, I'd love to get regular facials, but we're not there yet. But with beauty, I always think it's like I try and break it down. I'm like, okay, what do I want to address now? Oh, I want more glowing skin. So I'm like, okay, what's the best ways to get there? Tick my boxes. Break it down, write a list.
Love that. Then on the tech side, do you have any apps that you love, even in your creative stack, productivity stack, any apps that you love?
So my notes app, I use it every single day. I do use Notion and I think it's great. I actually use Calendly now. For ages I was not into it because it always feels a bit robotic when someone's like, book a meeting with me.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but yeah, I quite like that now for just being able to be like, look, this is where I'm free. It just kind of cuts out a lot of the back and forth. So I do use that. I do use ChatGPT, but what I use AI for is for the stuff that I am not good at myself, which I think is like, I find it very confusing when people are like, oh, you don't use ChatGPT to do your writing. I'm like, well, no, because I've been writing for years. I honed that skill.
I've got
that down. The same. I'm good with that. But what I'm not good at is tracking my monthly spending. So if I send everything that I need to spend and it puts it into a spreadsheet for me, you know?
Yeah.
Or like reviewing contracts.
Yeah, I
myself.
use that. Yeah.
But it's quite good to be like, right, what are the flags in here? And like, this is what I understand. Is that correct? You know? So I do use that. WhatsApp, obviously. Yeah. Canva, CapCut. That's my Canva I think is amazing. Also, I was thinking on beauty.
Yeah.
I use purple shampoo. That's like my,
Oh.
like, it's like the regular one that you get. That's like Provoloke or something. It's so much better than the Olaplex one, which costs 10 times as much. Blondes, get your purple shampoo. Essential.
Okay, good to
And then tech. Those are my go-tos.
Are there any like newsletters, books, etc. that you consume to help you with business side or creative side?
When I'm in a good space, I'm reading a lot. And when I'm not in a good space, I'm not reading. I feel like reading is almost like going to the gym for me, in that it shapes my mind. At the moment, I'm reading 2 books. I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, which is like a Hindu text for philosophy, because I like to read philosophy.
Nice.
And I'm reading a book called The Ape That Understood the Universe, which is about evolution, basically, and how humans work. But so there was a writer called Ryan Holiday, who's really well known now, but I discovered his writing about 10 years ago when he was writing blogs and stuff. He was writing about Stoicism. That literally changed my life, because I felt like my life had controlled me rather than the other way around. I didn't really understand the position that I was in, like the work that I was doing. I was like, this wasn't my plan, but here I am. And how does that happen? How do you just let your life go a little bit? Even as someone, like, I was always very motivated and I always went after things. But then all of a sudden I got to London and it was so busy, and I had this job, and that just was what my life was. Stoicism kind of made me feel that I had control over things if I would only take it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And that also period of time was like, I got very into reading. And I also feel that for any emotional challenge you're dealing with, consuming the right information will get you past it. I really like the work that Emma Greed's doing in terms of women in business with Aspire. I also really like the Goop podcast. I'm going to thank her. I feel like she has some really interesting guests on there. I like long form interviews. I go in phases, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts as well. And of course, Coffee and Oysters.
Yes,
of course.
Amazing. Thank you for the selection. I know what you mean, especially sort of like philosophical, thought-provoking things. It really broadens your mind. I'm not so much of a book person, but I've recently gotten really into Substack. In terms, I got rid of Twitter ages ago. I don't even really like Threads, but I really like Substack Notes because it highlights a lot of thought-provoking articles. I might just be like switching my brain off and scrolling, but then I'll come across a really thought-provoking article that's long form, and I'll read all of it. I feel like it balances the scroll, makes my scrolling more intelligent.
Yes. And actually, a lot of people gravitated to Substack who had very interesting things to say. It's in a nice place now where you really can find thought leaders and great writers. You can find so much interesting information. I have obviously been on Substack for a couple of years as a reader and a writer, and I think it's a great platform and a much more positive space than a lot of the other social channels. Actually, I will say there's a music newsletter called First Floor, which is really, really good for people specifically interested in music. It's like in-depth articles on the electronic music industry. People kind of joke in the industry that's quite negative. It's very critical, but that's why I really like it. Sean, the writer, writes about the fact that music criticism isn't very common anymore because everyone's like, oh, this was great. You did great. Like, this is lovely. I love this song. And he's like, the system is broken. This platform sucks. But it feels more true. It's not to say that the good isn't there as well, but it's good to know the challenges and be honest about them. And he writes about it very in depth and very eloquently, and it comes from a place of love. So yeah, First Floor, I recommend.
Okay, we'll check that out.
So hey again, did you know there are roughly 100,000 London business babes out there, and we're on a mission to reach as many as possible? Enjoying what you hear? To support the hours of work that goes into making this special, you can either A, consider supporting directly as a paid monthly Substack subscriber to also unlock future exclusive content for less than a coffee and a croissant. B, any brands listening, we'd love to explore ways for you to be part of the journey. C, at the very least, on your next co-working date, tell a fellow London business babe about us. Details in the show notes. Now let's jump back in.
Thank you very much for sharing all of your gems with us.
My pleasure.
Now we're going to move into the London side of things. When you are in London, where do you spend most of your time?
Yeah, also London is the best city in the world, probably the best place in the world. It's definitely my home. Even though I didn't grow up there, that's where I feel I grew up, where I really came to being.
I get that.
I'm an East girly. I like East and North. Hackney Wick is like home. I've been there for 4 years. As you said, I'm kind of transient at the moment. I left my other job. I was like, I actually don't need to be here right now. Kind of just felt like I've been there for over 10 years and I was just feeling a bit like, just the world is big. And I was like, there's other places for me to explore. And also, I didn't feel like I was really squeezing the juice of London anymore. I think there were points in time where I was and I was like not really getting the most out of it. And I feel like I need something else for right now. But yeah, Hackney, so like East London is my area, and then sort of North, like Angel, Highbury, that kind of space.
Is there anything on your London bucket list?
I actually really love being a tourist in London. I always think whenever I need to remember how much I love London, I go to Covent Garden or Soho and I remember that London is the coolest thing. And I love the walk. If you go to the Tate Modern and you walk over the bridge, I can't remember what the name of the bridge is.
Oh, yeah. Like you can see walls and stuff.
Yes, this is the coolest place in the world, like that walk. But other than that, I think the Hackney Wick Canal, where you've got Crate and stuff, is really lovely. Upper Street is probably one of my favourite streets in London. I mean, you've got all like in Islington, like there's so many restaurants and cafes, and I always just want to go to every single one. Strolling around there with a friend is just heaven. It's the best. And then going to the pub for the afternoon. That's a good day.
What are your favourite places to eat in London?
Well, I'm not really a foodie. I know that's a bit controversial. People are like, what is that? I've got too many other things. Whenever someone's like, recommend a restaurant, I'm like, I'm not tapped in on that. But having said that, the food restaurant options are amazing. If I go to Kingsland Road, there's a restaurant called Plates by a chef called Kirk, which is entirely plant-based and incredible in Shoreditch, so I would say there. And also there's a restaurant called Plank in Haggerston, I think, which is really beautiful and lovely, just like somewhere that's really nice. And Bistro Tech around there is also really nice. I like places where the carafes that the water comes in. Like, you're like, I want these carafes. And also Victoria Park Village, I really like. There's a wine bar called Bruno there, which is really nice. So yeah, I would say those are my current fave spots.
Good to know. And are you coffee shop girly?
I spend my life in coffee shops. I literally love coffee so much. I tend to go to wherever I'm living. So like in Hackney Wick by my flat, the best ones were, there was one called Saint Espresso, which kind of had a bit of a viral moment recently because they had a pop-up with roll boys. Did you see that? The cinnamon roll thing?
No.
People were messaging me being like, this is right by your house. I'm like, I know, there's like queues outside it every day.
Just and I can't get a coffee.
Yeah, I was taken over my favourite coffee shop. Well done, roll boys. Saint Espresso was really nice, and there's a coffee shop called the Clarnico Club, which was more of a community space in the middle of the buildings where I live that was super nice. Everyone used to go there and kind of know each other. It's dog friendly. I have a dog, so anywhere that's dog friendly and vegetarian friendly, I love, which is basically everywhere in Hackney. And I think Jolene is so pretty. Oh, yeah. The one in Newington Green is lovely. I love Green as well. So yeah, those are probably my go-to coffee spots.
So many options.
So many good options, and there's always a new one. But I am pretty Easty in that way. I do like an independent coffee shop that you can kind of get to know the baristas and like, you know.
Are you part of any member clubs or communities that you want to shout out?
I have been part of a few. So one I will shout out. So members clubs, there was a period where I was like, shall I join Soho House? But I think it's not what it used to be, no offense. Voices Radio is a community radio station in King's Cross that is basically just full of people that are really passionate about music and the arts. Yeah. Really good people.
I think has a Voices.
Okay, amazing. Shout out Voices, really good place, good people. I used to do quite a few things with the Dots, and I love Pip. They do some nice, interesting events when I was in certain periods of time. I liked that community. She said, as I said, is for women in music, but that's a really, really great community. Not bad for female DJs, although the genre is slightly different for me, but I love the people. What other communities am I a part of? Obviously, my biggest one is my Substack community, the one that I run. A friend and I, who we actually met on Substack, host the writer meetups for people who are writing on Substack in London. Like the people who come, just like everybody is so interesting. I don't know if it's because there's something about the fact that you've made the decision to share information about yourself or about something that you care about, But I always get into the most beautiful conversations. We've been doing that for 2 years, and I always leave them and just feel like, often I'm tired because it'll be like a Wednesday night and I'd have been working and then doing music, and then I go to the event and I feel so restored. We do it. I think you would love it, honestly. We now do it under Writers IRL. We set up the Substack specifically so we could keep in contact with people. Substack has this algorithm that keeps changing, and it's quite hard to let people know about the events now. When we started them, Substack was a lot smaller. It's grown so much in the past year. But yeah, it's like writersirl.substack.com, which is where we share about them, and we do them once a quarter. Really lovely people. There's new people every time, but there's also a consistent core community because there's people who show up. And yeah, just a really lovely, interesting group of people. And it's kind of a weird thing where you're like, I know that I'm going to see these people like 4 times a year and know what they're up to, you know?
I love that. So
it's nice.
Definitely link that in the show notes.
Yeah. Also, I will say, like, Hackney Wick, when I moved there, that was a community, and it still is. That was something I was looking for that I didn't have in previous areas of London. People are so nice and so friendly. There's someone in my building called Alex, and she's like a community leader. She knocked on everyone's doors and was like, join the WhatsApp group. But she's like an amazing person, like beautiful family, and like there's just so many just warm, nice people and like genuine friends that I made from living in that area. I had never felt that anywhere else that I lived in London. It was a real hug when I moved there. From the outside, I was like, oh, I can see that this place feels a bit like that, but is it really going to be like that? And it really was, not in an artificial, forced way. People support each other. It's nice.
Yeah, it's lovely around there. Like every now and again, it's just the vibe of the canal, and everyone's just chatting to each other and got their dogs, and there's music coming from everywhere, and you're like, yeah, it's this magical place.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's nice.
Amazing.
Don't worry if it's a lot to take in. All of the amazing tools, spots and recommendations mentioned by our guests can be found in the Coffee and Oysters guide. Details in the show notes. Don't worry if it's a lot to take in. All of the amazing tools, spots and recommendations.
Thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
All of your recs are going to go into your profile page in the Coffee and Oysters guide, so don't worry, you don't have to scribble everything down. It's literally a link in the show notes where you can find everything.
Go to my favourite coffee shops.
Exactly. And to wrap up now, what's a recent win that you're proud of? Is there anyone else you would like to shout out for being amazing or something they've achieved?
Yeah, a recent win. Well, being fully independent is a massive win and a change. Also, I am really proud of starting the label. It's a huge amount of pressure releasing someone else's music because they care about it so much, and your job is to support them and get people to listen to it. But I really believe in what I'm doing with that. But someone who I really want to shout out, who is like a massive inspiration to me, is my friend Michaela. She is the person I run Writers IRL with and my Substack co-host. She was in a corporate job working in the publishing industry from a very corporate detached point of view for her whole career, or for I guess 8 years or something, kind of building in that. And in the kind of 6-month window, she completely pivoted to being independent freelance journalist, which I think journalism is like one of the hardest careers to establish yourself. And we've done our journeys together in a way because there's some symmetry in our paths. Like I first left my Nike corporate job. This was kind of like my second time around. I wasn't fully independent before, but like I left Nike. It was a big decision and a big move to pursue what I wanted. In recent times we've grown together, and she's someone who head down, super focused, and makes things happen. It's so nice that we met through Substack, and now we're kind of our own things, but we're real champions of each other. I'm really inspired by her and everything she does. So Michaela Parks, yeah.
Shout out to Michaela. Let's get her on the show in the future.
Get her on the show. I can listen and learn from her.
Awesome. And then to wrap up, is there anything that you would like to plug? And is there anything that you need help with?
Great question.
You never know who's listening.
Yes. I'll do the plug quickly because that's easy. I have a new EP out called Explorer, which is 6 tracks. I produced it, and it was mixed and mastered by this guy called Matt Carmel, who does all of Bicep stuff and works with loads of big important people. It sounds amazing, and you should definitely listen to it. I'm very proud of it. What do I need help with? I'm learning everything at the moment. The biggest thing is lead generation, finding new clients. I started my business, most people when they leave a company and go independent, they go with a client from their previous company.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm going after a completely different market and startups, integrating into that world and finding the relationships to make sure that Startup Brand Lab is a success. That's number one. The second thing that I need help with is I'm still in this kind of strange place with radio where I've been doing it independently for a really long time. I want to do it professionally. I don't know where that opportunity or that leap or that link is going to come from. I'll just keep going until it does and build my own station. That's my plan. But it would be a nice one to be more integrated in.
Okay.
Can you help, Francis?
I would love to. But if anyone listening can help, please hit up.
Yeah, but I was also thinking you could definitely give me some advice on the first part of that, because you're now a full-time Notion consultant and presumably you had to build a lot of those relationships, clients, etc. yourself.
I mean, my big thing is networking events now. I go to one a week.
Really?
That is the vibe for the moment. And the goal is either to find people who would listen to the podcast or be on the podcast, people who would need Notion help. But LinkedIn is great for finding clients.
Yes.
I just have search queries and I look at them every now and again. Someone's like, I need a Notion consultant. And I'm like, hello.
Oh, okay, interesting.
That vibe.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I always think there's this thing is like exactly what you're doing, but the whole reason that I was like, I know that Startup Brand Lab is needed is because I can see all these people needing what it offers. But it's a matchmaking thing of you're like, okay, how do you find those people at the right time?
Yeah.
That's the challenge I'm working on.
It's definitely a challenge.
Okay, great.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you? I will link all of this in the show.
Yeah, come have a chat. Substack is a great one.
All of your
Definitely come hang out on whichever one of my Substacks is interesting to you. I have 3. 5 good things is 5 recommendations I make each week. Places you want, books you should read. Then Dance Music Digest, specifically focused on dance music culture, and Writers IRL for people who are writing on Substack or elsewhere or are interested and want to plug in with a network and community of other writers. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube as Lex Hearth and on LinkedIn as Alexandra Hearth. Alexandra is my full name. I still use 4 very professional things. But yeah, everyone calls me Lex.
Yeah. Like when you sent in the second guest form for coming on the podcast, you put your name as Alexandra and I was like, who's Alexandra?
Did I?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Constantly I'm like, oh God, I've got too many identities. It's too confusing. I need to it's getting simpler.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Get in touch at coffeeandoysters@gmail.com. Stay connected at Coffee and Oysters Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And never miss out by subscribing to Substack. Details in the show notes. And most importantly, keep those 5-star ratings coming and see you next time.